Hello you guys, welcome back to my channel. My name is Jess and today we're going to have a little bit of a reading wrap up for March as well as an April TBR. This month I felt like I had a pretty good reading month. I started a new series which I'm really excited to continue reading this month. So overall I feel like I generally really liked the books that I read and I'm really excited to share them with you guys. So if you guys haven't already, please consider subscribing. Besides that, we're just gonna get right into the video. The first book that I read this month was for my book club. So if you guys don't already know, I do have a book club with a couple of friends. Basically, whoever's turn it is to host, they come up with a list of books that they think would be good for book club and then we collectively choose which book we want to actually read. So this month we chose Flock. Truthfully, I did not know what this one was about when I selected it as my number one choice. The blurb on like the Goodreads app, on Amazon, literally everything makes it sound like it's going to be some sort of thriller or suspense type novel, like maybe like a mystery novel, but that's absolutely not at all what it is about. I did still give it 4 stars, and if I refer to my phone at all, it's because I did take notes on what each of these books was about, what I rated it, the whole thing. But this was definitely not at all a suspense thriller mystery type book. This was a romance, which this month I was not really into reading romances. I've been really into either like the mystery thriller type mood or I've been into like a fantasy type mood. So I was not really excited to read a romance, but nonetheless, I did give it 4 stars, like I said. So basically this book was about a girl who goes to live with her dad for a summer. She has a deal with him. He owns a plant and it's in a really small town. So effectively he owns the whole town and makes a deal with him where she works for him for a certain amount of time. And then based off of that, she's going to end up going to school, but she does get like a very large sum of money as like because he was never really in her life before. So she does that. But while she's in this town, she also meets 2 guys and she ends up in a polyamorous relationship with the 2 guys. The 2 guys that she's in the relationship with, though, are in a secret society, if you will, which sounds crazy and a little weird, but that's basically what it is. They're in this secret society and she can't really know too much about what's going on because she's not officially a part of it yet, even though she's dating them. So it gets kind of weird and complicated. There's a lot of secrets between them. A lot of just like crazy stuff. And this book ends on a crazy cliffhanger where basically someone comes to her and she's like, oh my gosh, you're the leader. And then you're like, who's the leader? And you just like want to know. There was a lot of heartbreak in this book. There were a lot of parts that actually made me really sad, like actually feel something for this character, which is a crazy thought because at first I was just like not super into the book. So it was really good. I read this one really, really fast. And because of that, we all ended up having book club a little bit early this month. So we actually had a second book, which I'll get into. It was the second in this series as our official book club book when we like met at the end of the month. I don't know, I had mixed feelings on this one. I wish that the blurb was a lot like better written online because I feel like people don't know what they're getting into with this book, and if you're not in the mood for this, then you're quickly going to put this down. So I just don't think that it's giving it justice. But overall, I feel like a lot of the emotions that they go through and a lot of the things that they go through overall in the book are very real, and I don't know, I just really liked the way that the characters were written and stuff. So I gave it 4 stars. It was not a 5-star book, but I did really enjoy it. So that was the first book of the month. The second book that I read this month was Throne of Glass, and I do still have it on my Kindle. However, I actually read it as a physical copy from the library. I have a couple of the other books from the library here. These are actually the old covers. These are the new covers. If you can kind of see what it looked like, it's a bit of a difference. It got a little bit of a refresh. I actually like the new covers more, but they just don't have them at the library. But because these are fantasy novels, I feel like I enjoy reading the physical copy. I don't know if it's because I can like flip to the map or like what it is that it's doing for me, but I really like reading the physical copy. But this is the first in the series. There's a few different ways that you can read the series. So some people read, this one is Assassin's Blade. Technically it is 5 different novellas. Some people read this one first, some people read this one third, and some people read it fourth. I think those are like the few ways that you can read it. I decided to read this one third, but technically these are like prequel novellas to this book. So the things that happen in this book happen before this, but I read this and this, and then I went to the prequel. And that's just because that's the way that the author recommends it. So basically, just to give you a high level overview of like what the series is even about, it's about this girl, her name is Selena, and she lives in a city called Aurelia, or I don't know if it's like a country, I guess you could say. And this area this country, if you will, used to have magic and fairies and the whole thing, and it was outlawed by the king. The king has also started to take over a lot of the like surrounding areas. So now basically he's like the ultimate ruler, and there's only one location across the water that is not ruled by this king. So she is an assassin. She grows up an assassin because she was trained by an assassin leader, and she's just really good at what she does basically. So they go through these trials. They're trying to figure out who is going to work for the king as the king's personal assassin, and she goes through these trials alongside the other people who are competing to be the king's personal assassin. So that's how this book starts off. There's obviously so much more to it, and I don't want to give any spoilers, but obviously again, we're in a fantasy world. There's magic, there's kings, there's queens, there's fairies, there's so much going on in this book, and I thought that it was a really good start to the series. Truthfully, I think that the way that this particular book wrapped up as if it was going to be a standalone novel. I don't know if that was like the original intention of this novel or if it always had the intention of being a series, but it did wrap up like extremely nicely. So I don't know what the initial intentions were, but I'm glad that it's a series because I've been obsessed with the series so far. So I gave this one 4-star. Really, really good. Yeah, just basically goes through that first part of competitions with the other people. It is also a YA novel, so any time that there is a love interest, it's really just talking about feelings, emotions, like maybe a kiss here and there. And if there are any like more explicit scenes in any of the books, it just kind of says that like they spent the night together or like cuts to black or whatever, which I personally prefer. I just don't feel like a lot of those scenes are very necessary in a lot of these books. Like I just don't feel like I need a lot of like smutty scenes personally, but I've learned over time that I think that's why I like that YA genre, because I feel like I get the emotion, and I actually enjoy more of the like flirting and the emotion than I do the smutty scenes. So that is one thing to note though, if you are someone who enjoys those types of scenes. Moving on to the next one, I read Crown of Midnight, which is the second in the series, and this one basically is this same main character now living her life in the kingdom. Essentially, there's a shift in the romance plot in this one, which is really good as well. And you're just diving deeper into the whole world. A lot of the, again, magic, fairies, kings, queens, like this whole thing. And you have a really, really, really huge cliffhanger at the end of this one, which makes it hard to like want to go back and read this. But one of the main characters learns something about our like main girl character, and you're just like, oh my God, like you want to learn so much more about it. I gave this one 5 stars. I don't want to say too much about it only because I don't want to give any spoilers whatsoever. Like it's just such a heartbreak if I gave any spoilers, but I really, really enjoyed that one. So that one I gave 5 stars. The next book that I read this month was Assassin's Blade, and I gave this one 4 stars. I also really enjoyed this one. Like I said, this one is a set of 5 novellas that are a prequel to Throne of Glass. And I do see why some people enjoy reading this one. As the first, you learn a lot of information in this book. So the first few novellas kind of take a second to get into because you're kind of like, why does any of this matter? Like, are we just like going through how she was living when she was just an assassin before everything else happened? But slowly each novella gets like deeper and deeper into why and how things happened, because there's a lot that happens within the series that is like sort of like a half explanation, if that makes sense. Like it kind of touches on why something happened or how something happened, but you don't really know the depth of it or like the exact details, and this one gets into it, and it is intense and like honestly heartbreaking. It makes me really feel for the character, but I also enjoy that I read this one third because I actually care about the character more. So those first few novellas that are a little bit like, I don't want to say boring, but kind of boring in comparison to like the rest of her life, it gets you through it because you care about her and you want to like know more about her. So I did really enjoy this. I gave it 4 stars, but I don't know, maybe I'll move it up to 5 because I think that this one is really important in order to understand her as a whole. And I have a feeling that a lot of these characters are going to come back. So I'm very excited for that. Now, the last book that I read, the 5th book, was Exodus. So this is the book club book that we ended up reading just like most recently. I actually finished this after book club and I feel really bad because I didn't have a chance to get through all of it ahead of time, but I gave this one 3 stars. This one was a continuation of The Flock, or Flock. not the flock, just flock. And it picks right back up at that cliffhanger. So that's part of the reason why I wanted to read it. There are 3 books in this series, and the third one seems to just be like basically the stories that we just read in the last 2 books, but from a different character's point of view and like condensed a bit. So I definitely will get to that, but I don't think I'm going to like race to that book right now. This book basically starts off at that cliffhanger, like I mentioned, and kind of walks you through the rest of her story until about the 50% mark. Something insane happens at 50%. I really wasn't expecting it, first of all, but also that first 50% is like kind of slow, and honestly I wish it was like a little bit faster, which is why I gave it a 3-star. At that 50% mark, when something big happens, then it just speeds up, and then all of a sudden it switches to when the main character is 26, so like 6 or 7 years later. And kind of backtracking a little bit, Flock starts like there's a prologue where she's older and she's driving back to this town, and then it switches over to her younger self so that it could tell you the whole backstory of like the whole story of everything. So now this is switching back to that like prologue basically from the previous book. It's really good. I think that I wish that that first 50% was just a little bit faster, but aside from that, honestly, like the blurb for this one made a lot more sense and like was not just the first few paragraphs of the book, so that was nice. But I also feel like this one got wrapped up really nicely too. I really like the ending of it. There were parts where I didn't actually cry, but I really felt like I wanted to cry, and I felt a lot of emotion for these characters, and there's just like so much craziness that happens that I just like can't even explain without giving you guys any kind of spoilers. So I think that if you're going to read Flock, you absolutely should read this one, but I would just say try to just hold on to that first 50% because the second half is just amazing. So gave it 3 stars because I couldn't give it more than that with the first half being so slow. So those are all the books that I read. I think I still had a pretty good reading month. The lowest I rated something was 3 stars. Everything was a 4 or 5 otherwise. And I have been obsessed with this series that I was kind of thinking about it, and obviously I'm only a few books into it. There's 8 books total, and I am reading the 4th out of the series right now. But I don't know another series that I feel as strongly about besides maybe like Harry Potter that I'm like just so obsessed with. I can't stop reading. I need to know every detail. I want to understand every single thing. Like even the other Sarah J Maas series, the A Court of Thorns and Roses, I don't feel that strongly about, but this one I'm just obsessed with the main character. Like I love her so much that I actually care. So very excited to continue reading that series. In terms of April TBR, these books start not too hefty, I think like 300-400 pages or so, but they quickly go up, and the like last book I think is almost 1,000 pages, which is kind of insane. So I'm trying to be easy on myself when I kind of like make these next few TBRs because I know it's going to be tough with reading such large novels. So for April, I have Dark Matter, which is a book club book. It's actually my choice this month. I'm the one who's hosting. I gave my friends a list of books and they chose Dark Matter. So I'm very excited about that one. I think it's going to be really good. It kind of seems like it's a book about like alternate lives, I think. I don't know if it's like psychological or more like Matrix vibes, but we're going to find out because I'm very excited about that one. So Dark Matter, that's been on my list for a while. Then I'm going to read Heir of Fire. That's the 4th one in the series. Queen of Shadows and Empire of Storms. So those are the next 3 novels in the series. That will put me at, I think, 6 of the books, and then I'll only have 2 more left of the series by the following month. So it's going to be a full Throne of Glass series type month again. So I'm excited. I'm going to see how much I can get through. I'm hoping that I can get through all those books, and if I can get through more, then I'll be able to get through more. So that will be really amazing as well. But those are all the books that I read this last month and all the books that I'm planning to read this month. Let me know what books you guys are reading. I always love to hear you guys' recommendations. I always also love to hear like the types of books that you're reading, if you've already read books that I've read, because then we can share with each other. If you're ever interested, I always have my Goodreads down below as well, so you can check it out. Add me as a friend. We can connect there and talk about books as well, which is always really fun. But yeah, I'm really into this Throne of Glass series, and I understand all of the hype now because at first I was nervous to read it. I saw so many books and I saw how long they were, and I was like, I don't know that I would want to get into a fantasy series that's that long, but man, it's been really good so far. So very happy with it. It honestly makes me want to reread Game of Thrones, which is crazy. I didn't finish that series. I think I had like 1 or 2 books left, but I honestly might have to reread it after picking up all of these fantasy novels because I realized how much I really love fantasy. So you never know. But anyway, that's all I really have for you guys. So thank you so much. I appreciate every single one of you, and I will see you guys in the next one. Bye guys.